an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering Killing Eve, Season 1, Episode 7. I Don't Want to Be Free. In this episode, it turns out Carolyn is shady. Don't know exactly what she's up to. Is she like an outright traitor? Not sure. But she is definitely doing some underhanded shit. And I gave her more credit than she deserved. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everybody. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Melanie, who is in the chat. Hi, Melanie, for commissioning this episode. I'm very relieved. My internet went out, but came back just in time for me to continue with this recording. This episode, y'all, what a twist. I did not expect it at all. So last episode, we have the whole thing with Carolyn being real flirty and obviously like very into both of these dudes. And it's treated as if maybe she's just a goober who doesn't understand the situation. And I definitely was willing to see it that way, that she was falling for a playbook that's pretty predictable, honestly, in a way that we don't often treat women as being as susceptible to, if you get what I mean. When we have like the spy who's being tricked by somebody sexy from the wrong side, it's almost always a dude who is being tricked by a gorgeous young woman. And I really appreciate that everybody involved in this is middle-aged and that she is a woman who is falling for this bullshit. It's just a new way of deciding to do that. And I don't mean new entirely, but it's just not, you don't see it often. But now it looks like that's not what's actually happening. Now it seems like maybe she is making herself seem less competent to Eve. This is the thing. It could be a number of things, and it all depends on how she's wanting to play it. So either she is leaning on these guys for information, and using the fact that she is like involved with them as a sort of, what's the word I want? She's using that as a way to get in and get the information she wants, but she doesn't trust Eve for some reason. I don't think that's it, but maybe. She has her own agenda with the information that she wants to do something with, and she hasn't shared that agenda with Eve. And so she's like, trying to figure out another method of getting the information so that she can do what she needs to do without Eve also getting the information. Not because she doesn't trust Eve, but because she is involved in a whole other, situation. Maybe that's it. She is working with them and is actively like part of this group, the 12. Forgive me, guys. I'm just adjusting here. My blanket, it's a little chilly in here. Or, and that's the one that I have the hardest time with, is she involved with the 12? Really, honestly, my big question is the 12 even a real thing? Because the 12 for me sounds like nonsense. It sounds like a organization that was made up for a novel. It does not, for me, have the ring of truth to it. And it feels a little bit too easy. Like we're just out here being like, oh yeah, well, there are 12 people in this organization. We just have to find out who these 12 people are. Why would you, if you were part of an organization that size, let it be public at all that there are only 12 of you? There are so many reasons why she could be doing what she's doing. Maybe she's trying to get Villanelle to turn on her own people. But if she were trying to do that, she'd be well advised to involve Eve. So that doesn't really work, does it? There's just, there's a lot here. Okay, let's start off this episode with Eve, who is coming out of her hotel room in the morning. She is about to go down to breakfast, and she runs into Carolyn coming up the stairs, still wearing the clothing that she wore yesterday. Eve, it's interesting the way she decides to play this, because if I were Eve, I don't know that I would be as obvious about the fact that I noticed she was wearing the same clothing. I feel like this would start sending off some real alarm bells for me. It should have yesterday. I mean, it does. That's why she asks Carolyn to be looked into. But I feel like letting her know that you've noticed is just putting yourself in the line of fire a little bit too much. And I would have probably just kept it to myself and kept an eye on what was going on. But yeah, she's like noticing that she's wearing the same clothes, that she was coming in from outside, not coming out from the hotel room. The implication here is that she spent the night with one of them. And I think the implication is meant to be that it was Vladimir, but I'm not totally sure. Like, she says, Vlad's had a change of heart. They're giving us Nadia. And I can't help but wonder if in her mind, because we know that likely Vlad's change of heart is due to the fact that Eve offered Vladimir a repaired reputation. She says that she has proof that Carolyn got her information from someone else and that she can clear his name since he has been under suspicion ever since that happened. That is the most likely reason for why he is behaving, why he is changing his mind. But Carolyn, you get the feeling that she thinks that she is responsible for changing his mind because she slept with him. And not even necessarily like a transactional, oh, I'll sleep with you if you'll give me this information. It's more, I slept with him and reminded him that I am important to him or that he likes me. And therefore he has decided to change the way that he handles this whole situation. And, sweetie, you know, the thing is, like, it's really hard to know because now we know Carolyn is involved deeper than we thought, whether or not it's really that or what. So Eve has to pretend to be all surprised about how they're suddenly changed their mind and are giving them Nadia. She arranged for us to take her out today, and Eve keeps stopping her and trying to be like, have you not changed your clothes? And Carolyn keeps managing to dodge the question. She gets a phone call that interrupts Eve finally when she's about to ask the second time. And Carolyn gets a call and she says, oh, Christ. Of course. Where are you? All right. I'll be right down. Yes. Well, that's some good news. And she gets off the phone and Eve says she says to Eve, Nadia has been murdered in prison. The good news is the buffet is open. And this moment, guys, it killed me. It killed me. Between her and Constantine, I guess the implication is that it's Constantine, right? That she slept with. I was saying Vlad because of the way that she says Vlad had a change of heart. But Constantine is the one that's there for breakfast. And Constantine is the one that's giving her this look. So I guess it's supposed to be him that she slept with. I can't get over how cavalier she is about everything and how fine she is with showing Eve that she is cavalier. That's the part that I'm really like, what are you doing, lady? If you don't want her to be suspicious of you, then don't act like it's no big deal that this woman was murdered and then make a joke about the breakfast buffet. And when they go down to speak to Constantine, it's a weird, like, Carolyn doesn't seem to have any problem with Constantine sort of putting them off and refusing to answer questions and being really kind of shady about the whole thing. And I honestly don't understand, if she's trying to hide what she's up to, why she would be so sloppy about it. So I don't know. Does she like want Eve to follow these threads? Like, what is she trying to do? I don't know. But yeah, Constantine says that Nadia was attacked by another inmate. It happens all the time in those places. And of course, Eve is just like, dude, don't fucking bullshit me. It's a coincidence that somebody we were about to extricate is suddenly murdered. Come on. Stop pretending that this isn't a big deal. And Carolyn says, you can see that it is a blow. And fucking Constantine says, for all of us. But these sausages are so good. Guys, what are they doing? What is this? Eve is ready to pop. She is so irritated. And Eve wants to go and meet Natalie, who is the one that they are claiming did it. And he just got through saying that he doesn't think that there's a real connection between Nadia's death and their investigation. But then he says, if Nadia's death was linked to your interest in her, I can't risk this happening again. And you don't get to see Natalie. And yeah, when Eve says, please don't bullshit me, Carolyn interrupts her and just is like, Eve, in this very like reprimanding sort of way. And it's so frustrating because the fact that Carolyn is acting like she's taking point on this, but doesn't like push back at all, it's just embarrassing. And I rather like how Constantine looks at Eve, the way that he's sort of like assessing the fact that she is going to be more trouble than he expected, maybe, you know? I don't know if so maybe, here's a thought. What if they are manipulating Carolyn into acting alone, telling her that's the only way that she will be allowed to see like someone, specifically Villanelle in this case, but, you know, and in this way, fomenting some sort of paranoia in Eve. Maybe that's it. Like, it could... I just have a really hard time believing that Carolyn is just an outright traitor. I don't think she's that stupid to think that... I don't know. But I could see them telling her that they will make an exception for her, but not for Eve, that they will allow her to see Villanelle, but not Eve, because they trust her, or they want to keep this really like hushed up. And Carolyn going for that, thinking that that is like a real like coup, like she's managed to get in somehow. And they know that should Eve find out about it, it will stoke distrust between the two of them. It all depends on how Eve decides to handle this, though, because the episode ends with Eve spotting Carolyn, seeing her on the camera. So it's very up in the air how Eve decides to play this. And she has been pretty vocal about noticing that Carolyn is coming home in the morning, that she's wearing the same clothes as the day before, when I think she should have shut up a little bit more. I'm hoping that this will lead her to realize that she does need to play it a little bit closer to the vest. And maybe that will lead to her like watching and figuring out what's going on. If she says something to Carolyn, I just don't see that going very well. You know, like, I don't know. I feel like there's a real potential of her either getting bumped off or, and I don't, not to say that I think that they would kill Eve off in the show, of course, but I mean, she's going to be in this position where inevitably she's going to be called to give up something, right? That's how these sorts of things go in stories like this. Is you decide that you have a dream job, or you have a mission that means a lot to you, and you are required to sacrifice things for it, or you are forced to sacrifice things that you didn't know you would have to for the sake of what it is you're doing. Does her confronting Carolyn make Nico a target? It could. I don't know. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm just, he gets up, he says to Carolyn, "It's been good to see you. I recommend you have a sausage and then go home." He says to Eve, "You're welcome to stay, but haven't been invited." And he really gives her quite a look when he says that. This is part of what made me go, like, maybe they're manipulating Carolyn. I don't know. So Eve is saying that we should just go to the prison without even asking their permission. And Carolyn says we can't. We've been prodding them too much, and there's something here that they're very sensitive about. And when Eve says that it might have been Villanelle that killed Nadia, Carolyn says it's not all about her. This spins out to a confrontation very shortly. So they go to this really sketchy, like what looks like a Radio Shack that has like a back room. And this is where Kenny is all set up. And Carolyn immediately is telling him to pack it up and get home. It's really, really like frustrating to watch, guys. He has come all the way out here. He knows that something is going on with her. The whole thing is really, really like upsetting to watch because she's being so dismissive of everybody involved here, and they all know. It's rough. So then we go to Villanelle. She's being led around the yard for her outing, I guess, by one of the guards. And she is trying to tell him that she'll pay him a bunch of money to get her a phone call. And then tries to sort of like get up in his face and threaten him. And she gets grabbed and pulled out of the yard forcibly. Yeah. Oh, man. It sounds mad, but what if the 12 put Villanelle back in the prison to kill Nadia? This is Eve. She can get in and out of anywhere, or she broke in. It might be easy for them to pay a random inmate to confess to the attack. And Nadia may have had something decent on the 12. We can at least ask if she contacted anyone while she was there. And Ken says, "I'll check the CCTV for visitors." And that's when Carolyn really shuts him off. "If we're found probing, it will make things worse. We have to be above board now." And Carolyn is trying to say that Anna isn't relevant, that we need to not worry about her. Because she is trying to say that Eve needs to drop the pursuit of Villanelle as an object altogether here. It's a really interesting moment because it's sort of like the catalyst for Carolyn deciding to shut everything down. She's trying to find out, Eve is, what it is that caused Villanelle to wind up as a killer. She's trying to figure out the psychology behind Villanelle as a person, and thus her origin, which she thinks will lead them back to the 12. But Carolyn doesn't care about Villanelle anymore. She's like, basically, she says, I'm not interested in how Villanelle came to be a killer. It doesn't help us. And Eve is like, the whole reason that you hired me is because you wanted me to find her. That was what caught your interest, was that I was putting together the pieces. What the hell? That was the job you hired me for. And Carolyn says, yes, and I can take it away. And then walks out. Will you and Elena organize to fly you both back to London? There's nothing to investigate. Oh, God. It is really... This is a hard thing to watch because you want Carolyn to understand the way this looks. Like, I really... It just keeps on... The thing that keeps on bothering me is how obvious she's being. And how it seems like she believes simply telling them not to do a thing is going to be enough to dissuade them. Like, you know that Eve was putting together an entire folder on a serial killer that she had no business investigating in her old job. Why do you believe that telling her to go home now is going to result in her actually doing that? What do you think? Who do you think you're working with? Who do you think you hired? It worries me. I don't get it. But yeah, Carolyn says, I'll follow on. I have a few things to tie up. Just let me know when you're on your way. And Kenny says, what things? And she stops and gives him a real look. Because the fact that he is now questioning her, it's obviously getting to her a little bit. And she says, go on. Traveling makes you rude, before she leaves. Girl, what are you doing? So he asks Eve, are we leaving? And she says, of course, we're not leaving. And he says, good, you need to see these. And he holds up a handful of international mail envelopes. And later on, we wind up finding out that these are filthy, filthy letters. I am going to look up a butterfly bead right now. Oh, there's a thing on Killing Eve Reddit. It already popped up. The butterfly beads that I'm looking at are all actually butterfly-shaped jewelry beads. So this is not something that I can find out it looks like without going into spoiler areas on the internet. So I'm going to click away. I'm going to avoid it. But yeah. When she's brought back inside from the yard, Villanelle is put not in solitary. She is put in a solitary style cell, but there is a woman in there already named Inga. And she is apparently like catatonic. She's just laying on the bench at the back of the room and doesn't like react in any way when Villanelle gets right up in her face. There's no response from her at all. But when Villanelle tries to flirt with one of the guards a little bit later, she tells her to watch out when she falls asleep. And sure enough, that winds up being the key. It seems, either pretends to fall asleep to draw Inga out, or she actually does begin to fall asleep, but is also trying to be aware. And Inga tries to cut her throat. And then she wakes up, fights Inga off, kills her instead, and winds up getting escorted out again. I am not totally sure what the deal is here. Why put her in this situation if they had another assignment for her? Are they just trying, maybe Inga needed to be taken care of and they put her in that place so that Villanelle would kill her because they knew she would? I assumed that Villanelle was being locked in solitary and left there indefinitely because they were washing their hands of her because she had misbehaved. But now they're giving her these other assignments and helping her escape. And now I feel like I don't know at all what it is that they want from her. You know, I have no idea. So, and that leads to her escape. Yeah. Kenneth is laughing about the letters. Well, he's not laughing. He's just a little bit horrified. Eve says, "Are you okay with this?" And he's like, with the fact that my mother might be dirty, or with the fact that my mother is in fact filthy. And by dirty, I meant like dodgy. But he says, "I'm not entirely surprised by either, to be honest." Oh my God. Guys, I paused on one of the letters. Can I read this to you guys? "Carolyn, you have poisoned me. I have a 24-hour erection. Vlad keeps asking me why I'm not standing up when he walks in the room. He thinks I'm disrespecting him. And all I'm doing is thinking about disrespecting you. I found the butterfly bead in my car. I thought," and this is covered up by her hand, something's struggling from home, but I'm sweating just thinking about you, making blah, blah, blah. I love your sweat. Come back. I have another poem for you, but for now, I would read it to you until you're blank before me. Ooh, that's pretty good. And that's the end of the letter. I am enjoying this. This is such a weird, like, the idea of writing dirty letters. I mean, it makes complete sense, but it's just a really, like, weird thing to think about, it being on paper and somebody holding on to it for this long. You know, when people sext nowadays, you leave that relationship and you like delete that shit, you know? But anyway, Evelyn, or Eve, I called her Evelyn. Nobody calls her that. There's this moment where she almost spills to Kenny. He says, "Do you really have to give them to Vlad?" And she says, "I have to give him something. It might break his heart, though." And he says, "What? Why?" And she realizes she can't tell him, "Oh, your mom also used to fuck this other guy." Like, she doesn't want to do that. So she just says, "No reason." And I'm like, yeah, he knows. She says, "Could they be coded, maybe?" And he says, I mean, perhaps. And she says, "Go back over them with a fine-tooth comb. I'm really sorry, but it's potentially there." And he says, "I went through her old photos room, pulled out the photos of every sexy man in Russia." And they find a photo of him, you know, a bit of a ways back, younger, but him. And she's like practically in his lap. And she says, "Yeah, and here's Anna too. And it turns out she's a language teacher. She's in the photo with all of them," which I find really interesting because Anna doesn't seem to know exactly what it is that Villanelle is into when Eve goes and speaks to her. So I don't know what she thought she was doing. She tells Kenny that he can go home if he wants, but he says that he is going to scan the prison cameras and try and see if anybody matching Villanelle's description comes up, and that he won't tell Carolyn anything. Eve is like, "Are you totally sure?" And he says, "I am a professional." And I love the look that she gives him of like appreciation. It makes me like, I just don't trust anybody now. I'm like, ugh. This is the first time that I've looked at Kenny though and been like, "Oh, you're kind of cute." There's like, he seems so young most of the time, but at that moment when he looks up from behind the computer and says, "I'm a professional," I was like, what's up? All right. So sorry, there's a fly like floating around in front of my face here. You guys see this thing? It's killing me. I don't know how it even got in here. So yeah, we have the fight with Villanelle and her getting escorted out, and then we bounce back to Eve, who is going to see Anna. And Anna has the hair, she looks in many ways very much like what I imagined. And she thinks that Villanelle is dead. And at first, Eve tries to pretend that that is true. But then she decides to tell her the truth a little bit later on. And it provokes a very strange reaction in which Anna is almost relieved, but she's also terrified. Like there's a combo of things going on there. And it's interesting because you can see that Eve almost gets it. Like there is definitely something between these two women. There is a kind of love affair and obsession, something very unhealthy that despite everything that Villanelle did to her remains. And she says something about like, if Eve will tell her, if she finds Villanelle and that she would like to see her. And Eve is like, why? And she says, I would like to forgive her. And I'm like, look, that sounds really noble and everything, but I'm not really sure I believe that's the reason here. I don't know. But yeah, at this point, Eve asks her some questions about who Villanelle is as a student. And she's trying and figure out, she wants to probe deeper, but she doesn't know how to gain this woman's trust. And finally, she just decides to try and be as honest as she can without admitting that Villanelle is still alive, and says, look, I'm doing an investigation that could potentially keep other people from getting hurt. Anything that you can tell me. So finally, Anna says, all right, listen, I do have some letters that you can look at. And why don't you come back to my place? I've got some cake. And they go back to her place, and it turns out like she doesn't have a couple of letters. She's got like a fucking briefcase full. But before we get there, we have the escort. This was very puzzling to me. And I said this already, that I don't really understand what it is that they are doing with Villanelle. If they, I guess, wanted, what is that name? Inga? If they wanted Inga dead and that was just the setup. But we cut from her being like grabbed up because she killed Inga to her in a high security van being escorted somewhere else. Now, I don't know where it is that they are supposed to be taking her on official business. Is she going to be brought somewhere to be like executed because she's killed somebody? I don't know. But she is in that van with Natalie, who is the one that they are blaming for the death of Nadia. She asks where they're going, and Natalie says court. But I'm like, I still don't really get this. In any case, they wind up being stopped. And it turns out that one of the guards in this van is in league with all of them, kills the other, and they jump out of this van, and there are bodies in the street. Everybody in the cop car that was like leading them is laying out dead. And there was an explosion to bust open the back of the van. It is a really like intense extraction situation. They want her really bad. Was it... I'm so curious about this. Could it be, because I thought she was being put in prison to be kept there and out of the way because she was being punished by the organization. Could it be that maybe Constantine had put her there himself without consulting the organization to get her out of the way because she was like not doing what she was told, and the organization figured out where she was and they decided to bust her out? Could Carolyn have organized busting her out? No, it has to be the organization, because then he's... Oh my God. Did Carolyn set it up for Constantine to be murdered? I am running all over the place. I'm sorry, guys. But yeah, she walks out, and when she sees the sheer level of destruction that they have been willing to take on her behalf to get her out, you can see this look of joy on her face in a way. Like she just is, it's almost like she's really moved by this, seeing what they were willing to do to get a hold of her, you know? And she starts laughing, and she's walking away to get up on the motorcycle. And Natalie's following her and says, "What should I do?" She's still got her handcuffs on. And she says, "I don't know. Run. You're free." And Natalie says, "I don't want to be free." And she says, "What?" And Natalie says, "I don't want to be free. I would rather die." And Villanelle says, "Jesus, look at me," because she starts to turn and see the woman with her gun up. And then asks her, "Are you sure?" And when she says, "I would rather die," she doesn't even quite get to finish the sentence before that woman shoots her in the head. Guys, that was like such a heartbreaking moment. Anybody else? That this poor woman not knowing what to do, not wanting to be free. Like, she's clearly got a lot of issues. She's afraid of herself, you know? That hurt. It really did. It was a weird, like, moment of kindness on Villanelle's part to be like, "Look at me," in order to keep her from seeing death coming. But also, of course, just brutal and convenient. It's just a weird moment. So she gets on the back of this motorcycle, gets driven off, and is brought to basically what looks like an abandoned building, and is directed to go upstairs. And there is a guy up there, this bald, I don't know if he's meant to be Russian. He almost has like a German accent. She thinks that she's going to be meeting Constantine. And when it's this stranger, she's just like, what the fuck is going on? And she asks him if he's okay. And he says, "I have a lot to explain to you and a lot for you to try and understand." And when he says try and understand, he like points in his head and makes this like, "Ooh, I'm really trying to think" face that is so like incredibly patronizing and demeaning. And I'm just thinking, dude, do you know who you're fucking talking to right now? Like, I don't understand approaching somebody like this with that attitude. I knew as soon as he did that, he was dead. I was 100% certain she was going to kill this guy. I didn't know if it would happen immediately. I suspected it would because she's not somebody to wait. But I figured he is going to be dead either by this episode or the end of the next episode. Sure enough, because he is acting like she's a child. And I'm like, you clearly have no idea who this person is. Like, so this dude, yeah, he just, poor judgment on his part. Very, very poor judgment. And yeah, he says, "My name is Anton." He keeps on trying to order her around. And it's just so clear that he has no idea who he is dealing with. He holds out a postcard that says, "Your new target. I'm afraid this one might be a little challenging." And of course, we wind up finding out pretty shortly that it's Constantine. And he's talking about how he got her clothes because apparently like things that are trendy. "We will keep your passport and your credit cards until you have completed the job and returned to this place. You have until tomorrow night. And after that, you will speak Russian to me. No more English. And that way we can build a very special trust." And he holds the gun out and points it at her. And you can see her realizing like, okay, I'm going to have my opportunity. So he hands her the gun. And I'm just thinking to myself, dude, you are making such a mistake here. He says, "Do you have any questions?" And she says, "Are you always like this?" And he says, "Like what?" And she lifts the gun and shoots him in the head. Honestly, this was a deeply satisfying moment to me. I had no problem with her killing this guy. He seemed so shitty. And working with him every day, oh my God, forget it. Forget it. He doesn't see her as a person, you know? He sees her as a little kid. So yeah. She gets on the computer and she types in the code and figures out that it's Constantine. And I think we saw that coming a little bit, right? When he said this one's going to be a little bit challenging. And she seems genuinely shaken by this. It's a very difficult thing for me to know when Villanelle is genuinely moved and when she's not, because she is so good at pretending to have human feelings that I don't know that she ever does. You know, it's very tough to get a grip on what's her acting. And the conversation later with her and Constantine, where he's telling her that he loves her more than his family and how proud he is of her. She gets teary-eyed. And it's, again, a question of, is he telling the truth? And is she genuinely being emotionally moved? I think yes to both. I think he's actually being honest. It would be very easy to be like, he's just trying to manipulate her and get her off her guard so that he can then flee. Maybe. I don't think so, though. I really do think that, you know, yeah, does he flee, bash her on the side of the head and give her the finger? Yes. Does that mean that he doesn't love her in his weird way? The way that he said? It doesn't mean that he doesn't. No. So it's such a weird situation. But we have Eve at Anna's place. She pulls out this, like I said, it's not a briefcase, but it's like briefcase size. It's like a big shirt box. And there is so much in there. I mean, there's letters, there's a couple pieces of jewelry, or like a what do you call it? Embroidered handkerchief or a journal or something. There is a lot in here. And you can tell that when she told Eve that I have some letters that you can read, Eve never expected it to be so much stuff. And she starts looking through it as if to be able to tell, is this all actually from her? Or did she just give me a big box of letters and I can sift through them to find the ones that are from Villanelle? And then she looks through and realizes it's all in the same handwriting. And she's like, oh my God, no, these are all from her. There's a bottle of perfume. And Eve starts looking through photos and you see Villanelle in like really ordinary clothing, like holding up this, little award that she got, like I don't know if it was like a certificate of completion of a course or something, but it's a really weird moment because she's just wearing this oversized like sweatshirt and it's so ordinary. There's just a bunch of indicators of her having a regular life that felt normal in its way. And how bizarre it is for us to see that. And all of the letters are in French. And Anna says that it was the French lessons that she liked the best, and then English shortly after. And the photos of her and Villanelle together are the ones in which Villanelle is showing the most personality. She's got a lot more of a smile on her face. It's just clear when she was around Anna, for whatever reason, she was happier. And she says something to Anna about like, this isn't just a few letters. This is huge. And Anna says she had a fixation. Eve says, was it reciprocated? And she tries to say, I was her teacher and I was married. And Eve is like, girl, come on. You know what I'm asking you. I'm not judging you. I'm just trying to get a sense of what the fuck is going on. And Anna at that point seems to kind of break a little bit. She gets emotional and says, we were told a new student was coming, a history of violence, antisocial behavior. Her mother was dead. Her father was a drunk. She arrived at the school and there's this everyone stepped back. Everybody was like afraid of her. Nobody wanted to engage with her. So I decided to step forward, and I gave her extra time and extra lessons, extra love. And Eve asks, what was she like? And she says, she was so intelligent and funny and rude. I liked her. And when Eve is asking what exactly happened with her husband, she says that basically Villanelle was really good at manipulating people. She would make you feel guilty. And so she was able to convince Anna to give her extra lessons and to come by after school. So she was at the house a lot. And it became really obvious that she did not like Anna's husband. And Anna figured she just didn't trust men, that probably she had been abused or something. And so in general, her opinion of men was very low. And at one point she made a joke about how Anna only liked Villanelle because, how Anna only liked her husband, Villanelle said, because he had a penis. And Anna kind of laughs and says that she might be right. And when Villanelle killed him, she castrated him. And she thinks that that is like a direct correlation, that Villanelle was just very literal. And we see a photo of her and her husband together off to the side. Her husband was very cute. He reminds me of Owen a lot. And she says that her husband thought that Villanelle was extremely cold and he didn't trust her. And that she thought maybe he was jealous. She says that she would send me gifts all the time. And Anna assumes that they were all stolen because she doesn't necessarily know about what it was that Villanelle did for a living. It's hard to say how much she knows about that. I assume not much, but the fact that she was in a photo with Constantine and Carolyn, I'm just like, yeah, something. There had to be some connection there. But I don't, who knows? And yeah, the whole way that Villanelle behaved as Anna came home was she behaved as if you're finally free. See, I killed your husband. Everything is fine. Now you and I can be together the way that we should be together. And it's like not even a sexual thing necessarily. It might also be, but it's more a need for a relationship, and that Anna just could not understand Villanelle behaving like this was a good thing. And she starts screaming at her about she was evil. And then Villanelle gets picked up by the police and I lost my life. And she says that. I lost my life after she was picked up, and then says, I lost my Maxie. And that is the name of her husband. But I'm like, I don't think the fact that you didn't say you lost your life as soon as you found him murdered. You said you lost your life when Villanelle was picked up by the police. That's when you said those words. That feels significant to me. And she just kind of sees this as like a punishment for having tried to do the right thing and be a good person and support somebody who needed it. That was like, for some reason, what she got, and she doesn't understand it. Villanelle had written to her in prison and said that she was going to come back to me. And then later, Anna is told that she died in prison. And this is when Eve decides to tell her the truth and be like, no, she is not dead. She escaped prison and she's been working for somebody who is protecting her. And I am trying to find her. And you can see Anna like the shock, but there's not just fear. There is hope. There is something in her eyes that's like, there's more there, you know? It's just a really interesting, complicated moment. So yeah, this whole conversation, it's just really interesting. And there's finally a moment where there can be a link. Eve is asking who told her that she died. And she says, oh, there was a guy that came to the apartment. He said he was aware of my relationship with her and that he wanted to tell me personally. And Eve starts to get a sense, and she says, will you remember what he looked like? And pulls out one of the photos that she got from Kenneth. And immediately this woman points out Constantine. And that's him with the beard. And she says, sexy man. I'm telling you guys, they are right. Like, Constantine, he's got something, man. He really do. Woo. And Eve is beginning to put some pieces together here. Then we cut to Constantine himself coming home. And as soon as we hear what supposedly his kid yelling from upstairs, I knew that shit was a recording. It was very obvious. And he goes up there, and sure enough, Villanelle is inside this, like, kind of fort that she made for herself, like a blanket fort. And he says, it looks beautiful, sausage. And he opens the thing and then falls to his knees and, like, claps his hands over his mouth to stop from screaming. That was a pretty good bit of acting. It's a bit extreme. It seems almost melodramatic, but I could absolutely see reacting this way. I find that when I am the most frightened, I don't make a sound because it's like, I can't, you know? And that moment of him just like falling to pieces and he starts shaking. That feels right. It's emotional. Man, this is some good shit. This is really good. And she pulls the gun up and you see her looking a bit saddened that she is having to do this, you know? This is a lot of emotion happening this episode. So Eve is wrapping up her conversation with Anna, and Anna brings out this like shopping bag and says that this arrived about a month after she died. I don't know who sent it, or I thought she had paid someone else to do it. I don't know. But it's this French designer, and it's a beautiful like white winter coat. And Eve is examining it, and she can sort of tell that there's something inside the lining. And she tears it open and finds the passport and the identification. She gives the coat a sniff and like kind of backs off from it like, ugh. And I'm not sure what that means, if the coat smells of a perfume that she doesn't like, or if the coat smells like, you know, decay or what. But that reaction was very specific, and I don't know if it's significant at all. But regardless, she tears open the lining, and yeah, there's a passport, and there's also money, I think, in this bag inside of the lining of the coat. And she takes that stuff. Oh, and there's a credit card also inside with the passport. That's interesting. Now I'm just realizing that the guy that she had been paired up with, whom she killed, Villanelle, said, we're going to keep your passport and your credit cards to ourselves until you finish this job. Was this them who planted this in the coat? Or was this somebody else? Was this, I don't know. But yeah, Eve decides to take that stuff, and she leaves the coat and doesn't tell Anna that it was in that lining. And I can't help but wonder if that's going to come back and bite Eve. Like, it may be that Villanelle figures out that her stuff is at Anna's, and she goes and tries to find it and thinks that it's Anna that, like, you know, is screwing her. I don't know. But I feel like that's going to come back and be a problem. And Eve leaves, but before she actually walks out the door, she just straight point blank asks the question, of whether or not Anna ever had sex with Villanelle. And Anna snaps at that point and says no and slams the door in her face. Understandable. She feels like she's opened up quite a lot. There's no need for this. But Eve can't help it. She can't help asking. So then we go to the conversation between Constantine and Villanelle in front of his like roaring fire in the fireplace, which I really enjoy because that fire wasn't there when he got home. So I guess they built the fire to have this talk. Okay. He tells her that he was protecting her because they wanted her dead. And she says, no, they wanted you dead. And he asks who told her that. And she says, Anton. And he seems to know who that is, I think, because he doesn't say who's that. He just says, where is he? And she says, he's dead. And he says, he told you to kill me? And Constantine seems genuinely surprised at this news. He didn't see this coming. And he asks who else is dead. And you can tell he wants to know about his family, and he doesn't know how hard to push this without sending her right over the edge. She tells him that they are screaming in a cupboard somewhere. And I'm like, not sure how much I believe her. She's trying to reassure him they're still alive. And later, when he flees, she says, I will skin your family alive. So I assume they actually are still alive. But there's something about the way she says it that it leaves a little bit too much wiggle room. And I'm like suspicious of it. But he thanks her. And this is when he tells her how proud he is of her. And she asks him how he wants to die, and he says he has some pills. So she agrees to let him take them. And he is taking them, and it's like, she doesn't ask to see the label or anything. It seems like she's taking his word that these will kill him if he takes enough of them. But I'm not totally sure what they are. It could just be like vitamins, and he was banking on the fact that she wouldn't check. But regardless, they have this kind of heart-to-heart, and then he finally throws the glass at her and bashes her on the side of the face with this log. And she gets knocked out enough that he really gets quite a bit of a head start before she is able to pull herself up off the floor. And I love that she keeps yelling, you hit me with a log? Like, she says it a couple times, like she just cannot believe it. And it's really, really funny. And he runs down to the dock and goes and gets his boat and motors away. And it's pretty much the best possible option for him that I can think of. A car, she can pursue him probably right away. She could steal somebody else's car. She could grab somebody. Who knows? But on a boat, who knows where he's heading, and he'll be able to get away from her unless she steals a boat, which she could, but it'd be trickier. It's a amazing scene to see him sailing away from her and giving her the finger, the whole thing. We cut back to Eve, who's trying to call Nico. He's not answering his phone. She leaves a message begging him to please call her back. Just leave a message or text, anything. She just wants to talk to him. And she says, I just want you to know, darling, that you are the most important thing in the world to me. And then she sort of loses it again. And I'm like, is he did Anna's story get to her and make her realize that maybe Nico was going to be a casualty here and she should be more careful? Or is she just doing the thing people do where they try and hold on to stuff because it's a habit? I don't know. I can't tell. But then she goes and she sees Kenneth, and they are looking at the surveillance footage, and they find Villanelle in the prison. And finally, when they follow Villanelle down some of these corridors, they come to the meeting room, and that is when they see Carolyn. And that is the end of the episode, is the two of them looking at one another and just in complete disbelief. I'm pretty impressed with Kenneth. It is his mother after all. I don't know what yeah, it's a real moment. I don't know what to think of this, but it's the end of the episode. That's where it ends. So I don't know, guys. I have to wrap. So thank you guys so much for coming. I appreciate you all so much. Yeah, and the next episode I think isn't for a little while. And I am just desperate. I just want to watch it. I'm going to watch. I know it's not a voyeur, so I'll be able to watch it tonight, actually, I think. But, I just, it kills me a little bit how far apart they are. Let's see. This is what's today? This was supposed to be for the 10th. The next episode's on the 24th and then the 27th. Okay. Actually, we have 2 more this month, so that's not bad. But then the next one after that, there's over a month between. It's not until May. So yeah, there's going to be quite a bit between, but I'll try and enjoy this month at least. So yeah, I'm going to wrap. Oh, thank you. Melanie says, keep looking after that throat, lady. Thank you. Yeah, it gets raspy after the 3rd one. But yeah, so I'll see you guys later this month. I'm excited. Thank you, Melanie, again for commissioning this, and toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.